It's nonsense. I mean, look, there's been a campaign of leaks from DOJ, unlike anything I've ever seen. I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I spent 17 at this Department of Justice. I don't recognize it anymore. They are consistently leaking. The angle they're pushing on the obstruction is to try to create some sort of daylight between Joe Biden's possession of documents and President Trump's. And it's not going to work. I mean, they have literally put in everybody to grand jury you could imagine. They don't respect any privilege that President Trump holds. And it's desperately trying to find an obstruction angle that just isn't there.
Former president himself, though, basically admitted to the crime. This is what he said to Sean Hannity.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I know you. I don't think you would do it.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would have the right to do that. I would do that.
What's up, everybody? Major retired Richard Ojeda here, and Chuck Todd left Trump attorney James Trusty's head spinning Sunday morning. Trump's attorney, James Not So Trusty, had just checked out of the Roach Motel when Chuck Todd sprayed the insect with questions relating to the classified documents that Donald Trump had in his possession at Mar-a-Lago.
Where in the law does he have a right to these classified documents? Presidential Record Act is clear. There's no vagary here.
No, well, you're right, but I think you're misinterpreting the Presidential Records Act. You notice he didn't say, I did this, I possessed it. He said, I would have the right. He's correct. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is a non-criminal statute, ex-presidents work with NARA, work with them for years, figure out what stuff they get. It took 18 years, I think, for Nixon's tapes to finally get to NARA.
They actually spent over 18 months before asking for a subpoena. He signed... he had a lawyer sign that he had returned all classified documents. So the problem is he actively misled NARA, so it forced a situation where they didn't know where else to turn other than the law. I mean, he himself lied via a lawyer, which has gotten that lawyer in trouble.
Todd presented a report from the Washington Post that showed that investigators now suspect that boxes of classified materials were moved from Mar-a-Lago after the subpoena was served. Security footage and witness statements say that Donald Trump personally examined some of these boxes.
And you have a process. This is what every other president in history has gone through, is a process of communicating and resolving issues as to what stuff he wants to keep and what stuff he wants to give over.
None of it belongs to him. He has this mistaken feeling that anything, none of it belongs to him. You seem to be, I think, maybe unintentionally misrepresenting the law when you talk about Nixon. The law was passed after Nixon. Nixon had a case because the law wasn't in place. The law was effective with the Reagan presidency in 1981. Does Donald Trump think he should get paid? Is that what's going on here? Because Nixon got paid $18 million. Is he just holding these documents for some sort of financial settlement?
Nah, that's a cheap shot. Look,
he keeps bringing up this Nixon thing. What other reason is he bringing it up?
Looking like a block of hog's head cheese with a possum fur toupee, James Trusty played the role of some backwoods Southern lawyer trying to hide the bloodstains all over his client's hands. Not So Trusty tried to characterize media reports about his client's criminal activities as leaks and factual reports of Donald's obstruction as a weaponized legal system. The Orange Mussolini's arraignment last week was big news. Every TV in America and around the world saw Donald in court looking pathetic. Now we have the Trump legal team trying to frame the latest legal disaster as something positive. This week, special counsel Jack Smith is leading probes into Trump's mishandling of classified information under the Espionage Act.
The president's comment.
He has done with classified documents what no former president has ever done. I mean, you keep trying to say all of those situations you represent, there was actual cooperation by those former presidents to deal with the dispute. In this case, not only is he not cooperating, he is actively not cooperating. And again, he did not comply with a subpoena. That's the end of the day. That's the obstruction charge. Why didn't he comply with the subpoena? There was a subpoena for all classified documents. He did not comply with the subpoena. He was caught not complying with the subpoena because of the search warrant ended up turning up more classified documents. How do you explain him defying a subpoena?
Chuck, the Democratic narrative, which you're touting right now to try to draw a distinction
it's just a set of facts.
Well,
no matter which way James Trusty tries to spin it, he's still a bug riding on a turd in a typhoon. If he jumps off, he will surely drown. So he's hanging on for dear life. His arguments are nonsensical. It is spoken like a true chicken that he is. He tried to mislead the Sunday morning audience and threw shade on Joe Biden. Chuck Todd presented a video clip of Trump and Hannity with Trump admitting to his actions. Trusty knew that Chuck Todd was hot on his trail and tried to throw the dogs off with the Richard Nixon Watergate stink palm that backfired in his face.
So let's talk about Delaware. You've got a vice president that has documents for decades in this Chinese-funded Penn Biden Center. Right? You've got absolute obstruction there because we don't even have any sort of...
How's that obstruction?
Because he had no right to have those documents.
Right. And
he didn't have
any... And did he refuse to turn them over when he found them?
Well, I don't know. It was hidden for so many months.
Again, did he turn them over?
Did his lawyers turn that over without any sense of chain of custody or any sorts of
Has the former president turned this over?
Well, we don't
subpoena?
have the leaks coming from Rob Hur's investigation to know the details of exactly how stuff was turned over.
So is your defense that hey, we think other people broke the law, so let us break the law?
No, of course not. Of course not.
I mean, I just think that doesn't seem to be a good defense.
Chuck
Trusty tried to associate Richard Nixon's Watergate with the Presidential Records Act. He said that it took 18 years before Richard Nixon's tapes got to the National Archives and Records Administration. But in Trump's case, NARA was hypersensitive in trying to get the classified documents back. Chuck Todd brilliantly reminded the rambling moron that NARA wasn't in existence when Richard Nixon was president, and that shot got through. That point smacked Trusty right in the face, and it really pissed him off. The arrogant smile just slid off of his nasty red face. He looked like a tomato as he told Chuck Todd that his comment was a cheap shot. A cheap shot, huh? It's the damn truth, Trusty. If you weren't buzzing around Donald Trump's backside like a gnat all the time, you'd be able to admit the truth. But that's what you want to avoid. You are Donald's Johnny-come-lately, the new kid in town. And Donnie only loves you when you're not around. And like every other loser that pledges their allegiance to Donald Trump, he'll toss you away like trash when he's done with you. Hope you got paid up front, you jackass. Donald's check will most likely bounce once he's locked up. You bring nothing to the table, Trusty, and that's a fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.